Hello, my name is Maria. My country of birth is Honduras. I write this small letter from the bottom of my heart to let the world know that being an immigrant is not a crime, and even less a luxury. For an immigrant, the only happiness one has to be reunited with his or her family. My story, as of many other young immigrants that migrate from their countries, is not an easy one. We endure many hardships from the moment we let God and our grandparents and uncles know that we're leaving our country. And do you know why? Because we are uncertain if we'll ever see them again. En route to this country, the days would seem long. I remember asking God to protect me and my brother. Thanks to him, everything turned out fine. I have to realize that life has left me with scars, and because of them, I will learn to be stronger every time. I learned fear, I learned hunger. I forgot what it meant to be protected by family. My only goal was to reunite with my mama after 10 years, and thanks to God, I have succeeded. My dream is to become a great lawyer, to defend the rights we have as immigrants. Remember the most difficult things because they will give you the most strength. For pghmuseums.org, I'm Brian Crawford. This is Cuando el Río Suena. In English, When the River Sounds. A conversation with Jaime Guerrero, the award-winning sculptor who created this exhibit, with no casts, all hand-sculpted, life-size children at the Pittsburgh Glass Center, and laid out by his wife, Jaime Guerrero. I spoke with Jaime in the exhibit. The letter you're listening to is from Maria, a child who made her way to the United States. It's one of many on display to be read at Jaime's exhibit. It concludes, remember the most difficult things because they will give you the most strength. My last call is to the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, not all immigrants are criminals. Don't separate us from our families. To start things off, I asked Jaime to set the scene for the exhibit.
Yeah. Immediately when you walk in, you see a huge, almost imposing um, uh, metal rusted wall. Um, so it's an overwhelming, it's supposed to be an overwhelming kind of structure that exists. And so so immediately you see that, and then you see these children contrasted on that heavy rusted wall. So the wall to me represents danger. It represents obviously demarcation and separation, and I mean it has a lot of heavy meanings for me, just the wall alone. So, but in highlighting the children, making them clear, um, speaks about the fragility of children. So making them in glass and making them transparent. Um, we look at what you see in the news are you see the children, but you don't know their story. So in some ways they're visible to us in the news, but they're really invisible to us as far as who they are. So in some ways, I'm kind of alluding to that notion of we don't know these children, we don't know their stories, we don't know their identities, we don't know what they've gone through to get here. So the first installation speaks about that. When you come in and you see that, then you look to your right and you see their stories. So it's addressing directly that notion and that concept of identity. Um, the other elements that you see kind of throughout the gallery are angels. So part of this exhibition, part of my journey and my direction was to create children that have passed away under custody. So under this administration, 7 children that we know have passed away under custody. So I was able to create some of those children, and make portraits of them, and almost kind of memorials of them, but also created them, made them into angels, which, to me, in a sense, they've become the guardian angels of the kids that are currently going through all these horrific experiences. So we see them throughout the gallery almost as guardian angels, but they're actual portraits of real children that have passed under custody.
Oh, wow.
One of the other installations speaks about child separation. There's another ubiquitous image of I need to get
What's
her
it?
name properly, but
Oh, yeah.
I believe it's Yanira Sanchez, the little girl who I believe made it in the New Yorker, in the cover of the New Yorker, and there's a audio and images that came out of her crying, her and other children that were being separated from their families that are crying, and there's an image of her mom being patted down, and the little girl is just devastated, and she's in, it's horrific. Like she's being separated from her mom, and her mom's being detained, and she's being detained. So it was a pretty heart-wrenching image to see and to hear that audio. So I will be offering that audio here for those that haven't heard it yet, in which some of the border agents are actually antagonizing the children that are crying. So I tried to create an installation that would hopefully put you in the perspective of the child. So, what is a child? What are the things and the horrific that horrific experience of being forced away from your family at such a young age. So I created an image that's larger than life size, and I placed her in the middle of that image to create that impact. We also have children's clothes or immigrant clothing that were borrowed from an artist, Tom Kiefer. He is a photographer, and he used to work. He was a janitor at a processing center, and he basically, since he was throwing these things away, the policy is that the agents take, once you're detained, they take all your belongings, that anything that you're not wearing, and all your personal items and food, and they throw it in the trash can. So I feel it's another inhumane practice that is currently being imposed on these immigrants. But all the belongings get thrown in the trash can. So Tom Kiefer, while he was working as a janitor, had the sense to pick up these items and collect them and store them. So he currently collects them and photographs them. So I was able to borrow some of these clothes to have in this exhibition. It's important to note that these clothes have never been shown, and Tom Kiefer doesn't show the actual clothes. He shows photographs of the belongings that he photographs. So this is the first time that anything like this has happened. So we have some of that being on display here today, and for the duration of the exhibition. We also have a cage that alludes to the detention of children. So there are some children in a cage similar to what you would see in a detention center, with a lot of these children being detained and isolated. So there's also an angel floating in that exhibition, in that installation. There's also a video that tells the story of a few immigrant children, and it really goes back to their home place, their home country, and their city where they had to leave. And it speaks about the violence that they were trying to escape and the death threats that they were trying to get away from. So so it really gives people a notion of that story that's never told. Why are these kids leaving? And so you will see here firsthand. You will read the stories, but you will also you can watch a 20-minute video that illustrates directly why some of these kids are leaving, and it explains some of those horrific um, uh, elements that are taking place in their countries. One of these sculptures takes about maybe a week to make all the components, and then it takes maybe a month to make sure that everything's correct. Cold work, all the parts that need to be cold work. In this case, we sandblasted these pieces, um, and usually there's a big punny or punties where it's connected to the blowpipe where we break it off and we put it away into the kneelers. So those areas have to be ground down and then polished, and then we sandblast the whole piece.
Wow. I imagine it would have taken like months to come up with just even one of those, because it's just it's beyond my comprehension. It's just really incredible. So I want to talk a little bit about the exhibit here. This exhibit obviously has a lot of meaning to it, not only from an artistic value, but in a social way as well. What? How did you come up with this concept? When did you come up with this concept? And what are you trying to, outside of the obvious, what are you trying to reach people with this exhibit?
This concept started probably 8 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago. The idea, I just remember reading something in a newspaper or watching the news, and remember thinking how bad immigrants get treated in this country sometimes, and especially currently. So, but initially that was a first response, and I thought that it would be important to talk about immigrant stories and immigrants' journeys, and especially in this current time, there's a lot going on that I feel needs to be looked at and needs to be addressed as far as things happening with children that seems a little bit inhumane. So I feel that partially this exhibition looks at some of those things and tries to address some of the human aspects of just social issues that are currently taking place. The important thing for me for this exhibition is to convey the actual stories of migrant children, to give them identity, to give them a voice, to give them a place to really share those stories and share their experiences of why they migrate, and you know what kind of things are happening in their countries, what kind of things lead them to the point where they have to risk their lives to travel to this country to try to find safety. You know, those are really difficult things to do, and the journey is perilous. It's a perilous journey, so it's so I asked myself, what does it take to make somebody leave everything, everyone they know, everything they own, and pack it into a suitcase, pack all their belongings into a suitcase, and just leave that life to try to find a new life. So those are some of the answers that I feel that I try to address in this exhibition. Yeah.
So this is focusing on children, this exhibit in particular, and I think part of that might have to do not only is the children have a hard time coming up here, but also a lot of the policies that have been implemented under this current presidency has been targeting children, trying to make migrating here as difficult as possible.
it's done in a way. You think it seems mean spirited to me personally. It's done. I listen to a lot of international news, and a lot of international NGOs dealing with human rights are now talking about the United States for the first time in my life in human rights issues. A lot of these children I know are according to the experts that I've been listening to, are going to unfortunately be dealing with a lot of anxiety and a lot of possibly mental issues because of the conditions that they're in. So, do you think by highlighting the children, it'll maybe bring a greater compassion to people who maybe seem to not be able to see past their own worldview?
So, yeah, I believe that a lot of the current policies are inhumane, and actually, the United Nations has put out statements saying that a lot of the current policies that are in place and that this current government is trying to establish are illegal. In fact, so
And I will say illegal under both international law and U.S. law.
Exactly. Under international law, the United Nations actually made claims that a lot of the policies around child detention currently taking place are illegal and are inhumane. So that definitely has been made public. That's public knowledge. So yes, I feel that specifically when you're I mean, already just the way immigrants got treated before all the child detention and child separations, I feel that there was already a lot of inhumane things happening. But now, it's pretty much out in the open, and it's has taken upon a pretty extreme turn. So I feel that highlighting what children go through, and yes, I believe there's also have been a lot of statements, and there will be information in this exhibition about associations and nonprofits that have come out unanimously to say that children go through trauma. There's some serious traumatic experiences that happen when you detain kids for an undisclosed amount of time. Right now, under U.S. law, a child can be detained 72 hours, but this administration is trying to push that to make it indefinite, and also separating children from their families. That's a policy under zero tolerance from this administration that came out, which separates children from their families, and was ruled illegal by the justice, I guess, higher courts in this country. So there is really something really amazing happening right now that is unprecedented, and I feel that definitely needs to be addressed and looked at and analyzed a little more, and really, I feel that by presenting these children in some of the instances that may be occurring in real life, whether they're being detained in a cage or they're crossing the border, risking their lives, or being separated from their families, it's pointing to certain aspects that I feel that are really serious and need to be addressed.
Now you have a child now, correct?
Yes.
Does that make this harder for you to see? Because
yes.
it could be you, it could be any of us. I mean, we could be in a situation where, you never know. The world changes. Look at, Rome fell apart. We can be in a situation where the United States is in a difficult spot and we're leaving to another country. Does it have a bigger impact on you?
Oh yes.
Now that you have a kid?
The title of this exhibition actually derived from the instance where the news, the ubiquitous image that you saw of the father trying to cross the Rio Grande with his daughter, and they drowned, and the little girl hugging the father. I mean, that was heart-wrenching. That's an image that will be stuck in my mind forever. So, the title, Cuando el Río Suena, is from a South American proverb that the full proverb is Cuando el Río Suena es porque agua lleva. That translates to when the river sounds, it's because it carries water. Kind of similar to the proverb, when you smell smoke, there is a fire. So it's alluding to the danger that exists coming here and the perilous and horrific experiences that some of these people face trying to come here, and obviously some don't make it. So it does hit at home because my daughter is 3 years old. She's close to the age of the little girl that
Wow.
was clenching to her father. So it definitely was a very horrific, tragic experience that I feel is one of the instances. There's that one story, but there's hundreds, if not thousands, of stories just like that.